Normandy, France, June 13, 1944. A Sherman tank erupts in a blinding spray of white-hot metal. Inside, 5 American soldiers are gone in an instant. They never had a chance. 200 meters away, hidden deep in the thick hedgerow, a German Tiger I tank slowly reverses into the shadows. Its 88mm gun is already being reloaded. The crew stays calm and precise. This is their 4th kill of the day. By the end of June 1944, Allied forces have put 875,000 men ashore in Normandy. They are up against roughly 400 German Tiger and Panther tanks. The odds of survival are harsh and straightforward. On average, it takes 5 Sherman tanks to knock out a single Tiger. 4 of those 5 Shermans will end up in flames. The Americans have a grim nickname for their standard M4 Sherman, the Ronson. It lights the first time, every time. In the bocage country of Normandy, where every field is a deadly trap surrounded by ancient earthen walls and dense hedgerows, American tank crews are dying at a rate of 580 men per week. The Tigers hunt from concealed ambush spots. Their frontal armor is 100 millimeters thick. A Sherman's 75mm gun cannot punch through it beyond 100 meters. The Tiger's 88mm gun can pierce a Sherman's armor from 2,000 meters away. The kill ratio in tank versus tank fighting is devastating. For every Tiger destroyed, 6.8 Allied tanks are lost. Whole armored battalions are wiped out in days. What the Allied High Command does not yet realize is that, back in a supply depot near Southampton, England, a 24-year-old corporal with no engineering degree and no official authority is stuffing children's toys into his rucksack. In just 7 days, he will completely transform armored warfare. His name is Curtis G. Cullen Jr., and he is about to carry out an act of battlefield invention so bold that senior officers will call it outright vandalism. The trouble starts the moment Allied tanks roll inland from the Normandy beaches. The bocage country of France has been shaped by 1,000 years of farming tradition. Every field is enclosed by hedgerows, thick walls of earth, tangled roots and vegetation that rise 4 to 6 meters high. The roots go down 3 meters deep. Stone and packed soil form the base, perfect for German defenders. The bocage is a gift to the enemy. Every hedgerow becomes a natural anti-tank barrier. Every field turns into a perfect kill zone. Tiger and Panther tanks position themselves in hull-down spots behind these ancient walls, showing only their turrets. When American Shermans try to climb over a hedgerow, they expose their thin belly armor, just 25 millimeters thick. German gunners wait for that exact moment. They almost never miss. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart A. Fries of the 2nd Armored Division writes in his after-action report dated June 18, 1944, "We are losing tanks faster than we can replace them. The hedgerows make every advance a nightmare. Our doctrine assumes open ground. Here we have none. The Army tries everything. Combat engineers use explosives to blow gaps in the hedgerows. That takes 30 minutes per gap and warns every German position within a kilometer. Bulldozer tanks try to push through. The hedgerows are too dense and too deep. The bulldozers get stuck or throw tracks. Flamethrower tanks attempt to burn the vegetation. The roots are too wet and too thick. Nothing catches fire." General Omar Bradley calls an emergency meeting at 1st Army Headquarters on June 24, 1944. Top engineering officers, armor commanders, and tactical planners attend. The conclusion is unanimous. There is no solution. The hedgerows are a natural feature that cannot be overcome with existing equipment. The Army must accept the heavy casualties and keep pushing forward in a slow, grinding advance. Bradley estimates it will take until September to break out of Normandy. At current casualty rates, that means losing 7,000 more tank crewmen. The stakes go far beyond Normandy. If the Allies cannot break through the bocage quickly, the entire schedule for liberating Europe falls apart. The Germans will have time to bring in reinforcements. The Soviet advance from the east might slow down. The war could drag on into 1946. In the tank battalions, morale plummets. Replacement crews arrive from England and die within days. Some men refuse to climb into their tanks. Courts-martial for cowardice rise by 300% in July. Veteran commanders ask for transfers to infantry units, figuring their chances of survival are better on foot. The Sherman tank, designed for the wide-open deserts of North Africa, has become a death trap in the tight, closed-in world of the bocage. Curtis G. Cullen Jr. is not an engineer. He's not an officer. He is a 24-year-old cab driver from Cranford, New Jersey, who joined the Army in 1942. He serves as a reconnaissance sergeant in the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, 2nd Armored Division. His formal education stopped at high school. His military training covered only basic cavalry tactics and map reading. On the morning of June 27, 1944, Cullen is doing maintenance on his EM-8 armored car near the village of St. John. All around him, the sounds of battle never stop. Artillery thunders, tank guns boom. Small arms fire crackles through the hedgerows. His unit has lost 3 reconnaissance vehicles in 2 days. All were destroyed while trying to push through or around hedgerows. Cullen watches a Sherman tank from the 3rd Armored Division attempt to climb a hedgerow 200 meters away. The tank's nose lifts high. Its tracks churn earth and vegetation for 3 seconds. Its belly is fully exposed to the field beyond. A German anti-tank gun fires once. The Sherman's ammunition detonates. The explosion is bright even in daylight. No crew members escape. Something clicks in Cullen's mind. The problem is not the height or thickness of the hedgerow. The problem is the Sherman's angle of approach. The tank is trying to climb over an obstacle. What if it could cut through instead? That evening, Cullen walks through a field recently cleared by engineers. Scattered across the grass are sections of German beach obstacles, steel hedgehogs, Belgian gates, angled iron beams meant to tear the bottoms out of landing craft. The steel is high-grade and hardened. The Army has been collecting these obstacles by the ton, planning to melt them down for scrap. Cullen picks up a section of steel beam. It is roughly 1 meter long, angled at 30 degrees with a sharp cutting edge. He feels its weight in his hands. An idea begins to form. Cullen does not ask for permission. He knows exactly what the response would be. Instead, on the night of June 28, 1944, he finds Sergeant William Duckworth, a maintenance specialist in his unit. Duckworth has access to welding gear. "I need you to weld something onto my scout car," Cullen tells him. "Don't ask questions." They work under flashlight in a field workshop, breaking blackout rules. Cullen has drawn his design on the back of a ration box. 4 steel prongs taken from German beach obstacles, arranged in a straight row across the front of the vehicle. Each prong angles forward and downward, like the teeth of a giant fork. The sharp cutting edges point ahead. Duckworth looks at the sketch. "What's this supposed to do?" "Cut through hedgerows," Cullen replies. "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Weld it anyway." They labor for 3 hours. The prongs are heavy and awkward. Getting them positioned right takes trial and error. The welds have to be strong enough to survive impact, but placed so they do not mess with the vehicle's suspension or ground clearance. By 2 o'clock in the morning on June 29, 1944, the device is finished. It looks rough, almost funny, like a kid's toy rake blown up to monstrous size. At dawn, Cullen drives his modified scout car to a quiet hedgerow. He tells no one in command. He does not write a report. He simply speeds up to 25 kilometers per hour and charges straight at the ancient earthen wall. The prongs bite deep into soil and roots. The scout car shudders hard. For a moment, the resistance feels total. Then the hedgerow rips apart. The prongs slice through vegetation, earth, and tangled root systems. The scout car bursts through to the other side in 8 seconds. Cullen backs up and checks the gap. It is 2 meters wide, just right for a tank. The hedgerow's strength is ruined. The hole can be widened easily with little extra work. The scout car's armor is untouched. The prongs are bent but still usable. He has just cracked the problem everyone thought impossible. Word races through the enlisted men like wildfire. By the afternoon of June 29th, a crowd of tankers and mechanics gathers to watch Cullen show off his invention. A tank commander from the 3rd Armored Division, Captain James Dew, watches the test and instantly sees what it means. "That is completely unauthorized," Dew says. "You've altered military equipment without permission. That's destruction of government property." Cullen shrugs. "It works. I need to report this to division." The demonstration reaches Major General Leroy H. Watson, commanding general of the 3rd Armored Division, on June 30th, 1944. Watson orders Cullen to come to division headquarters right away. Cullen arrives expecting a court-martial. Instead, he walks into a room filled with 30 officers, armor commanders, engineering specialists, ordnance experts, and staff planners. Major General Watson sits at the head of the table. The air is thick with doubt. "Show us your device, Corporal," Watson says. Cullen presents his modified scout car. He explains the idea clearly. Use salvaged German steel to build cutting prongs that slice through hedgerows instead of climbing over them. The device can be welded onto any tank in under 3 hours, using materials already on hand in theater. A colonel from the Ordnance Department stands up. "This is ridiculous. You're suggesting we modify thousands of tanks based on one corporal's backyard welding job. These tanks are precision machines. You can't just attach scrap metal to them." "I've tested it," Cullen says. "It works." "You've tested it once, on a scout car, on a single hedgerow," another officer shoots back. "What about weight distribution?" someone asks. "What about the impact on the tank's center of gravity? What about stress on the hull?" A major from the 2nd Armored Division adds, "We have set procedures for equipment changes. They require engineering studies, prototype testing, and approval from Washington. That process takes months." "We don't have months," Captain Dew says, rising to his feet. "We're losing 5 tanks a day in my battalion alone." The room explodes. Officers shout over one another. The engineering experts demand proper testing rules. The armor commanders push for instant rollout. The ordnance officers quote regulations. The argument grows heated and personal. General Watson raises his hand. The room goes silent. "Corporal Cullen," Watson says, "can you attach this device to a Sherman tank by tomorrow morning?" "Yes, sir." "Then do it. We'll run a live demonstration. If it works, we put it on every tank in the division immediately. If it fails, you're facing charges for destruction of government property." Dismissed. That night, Cullen and a group of volunteers work in the 3rd Armored Division's maintenance depot. They weld his device, now being called the Cullen Hedgerow Cutter, onto a standard EM4A1 Sherman tank. The prongs are larger than those on the scout car, strengthened to handle the Sherman's 30-ton weight. By 600 hours on July 1st, 1944, the modification is ready. The demonstration happens at 1000 hours. General Watson, General Bradley, and a dozen senior commanders are there. Cullen is not allowed to drive the tank. Rules forbid enlisted men from operating armor in official tests. Lieutenant Robert Babb, a seasoned tank commander, takes the controls. The test hedgerow is one of the thickest in the area, chosen on purpose to make it tough. Babb floors it, Pushing the Sherman to full speed, 40 kilometers per hour, the tank slams into the hedgerow with huge force. The prongs dig in deep, earth flies everywhere, roots snap like gunshots. The Sherman powers through in 6 seconds, coming out the other side with its belly armor fully protected. Bab reverses and hits the hedgerow from another angle. Same result. He makes 5 passes, each one successful. The prongs show some wear, but they hold up. The tank takes no damage. General Bradley turns to Watson. "How fast can you put these on every tank in your division?" 72 hours, sir." "Do it. Then send the design to every armored unit in Normandy." By July 5, 1944, the 3rd Armored Division has fitted 346 tanks with Kulin hedgerow cutters. The 2nd Armored Division soon follows, adding 298 modifications. Other divisions start building their own versions based on Kulin's simple design. Within 2 weeks, more than 1,100 Allied tanks in Normandy are carrying the device. The change on the battlefield is instant and dramatic. On July 8, 1944, the 33rd Armored Regiment launches the first major attack using tanks equipped with the cutters. Their objective is to advance 4 kilometers through thick bocage and capture the village of Auvent. Earlier attempts by units without the device had failed with heavy losses. Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Hogan leads the assault. His after-action report, filed on July 9th, gives clear numbers. They left the line of departure at 6:15 hours with 42 tanks. They crossed 17 hedgerows in the first kilometer. Average time to breach each hedgerow, 12 seconds. 0 tanks disabled while crossing hedgerows. 0 hits to belly armor. They reached the objective at 8:47 hours. Mission accomplished. Compare that to what happened before. 3 weeks earlier, a similar advance by the 1st Infantry Division took 36 hours and cost 18 tanks. Hogan's force finishes the job in 2 hours and 16 minutes with no tank losses from hedgerow-related damage. The true proof comes on July 14, 1944, during Operation Goodwood, a huge armored thrust south of Caen. Corporal Cullen, still with the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, joins the advance. His unit scouts far ahead of the main armored column. At 14:30 hours, Cullen's reconnaissance team runs into a German strongpoint near the village of Sintho. Intelligence says at least 3 Tiger tanks are dug in there. Normally, recon units would pull back and call artillery. Instead, Cullen's commander, Captain Robert Milligan, decides to probe the position. What happens next becomes one of the most recorded small unit actions of the Normandy campaign. Cullen's scout car, still running his original prototype cutter, leads 3 Sherman tanks through a chain of hedgerows the Germans believed were impossible to cross. The Americans suddenly appear 50 meters behind the Tiger positions. The German crews, expecting attack only from the north, are completely surprised. Sergeant Howard Davis, commanding the lead Sherman, pumps 3 rounds into the rear of a Tiger at point-blank range. The Tiger's thin rear armor, just 82 millimeters thick compared to 100 millimeters up front, cannot hold. The Tiger explodes. The second Tiger starts to swing its turret, but Lieutenant James Belden's Sherman destroys it before it can shoot. The third Tiger races backward at full speed, smashing through its own hedgerow position to escape. The entire fight lasts 90 seconds. American losses, 0. German tank commander Hauptmann Otto Carius, whose unit operates in the same area, later writes in his memoir after the war, "On July 14th, everything changed. The Americans began appearing where they could not possibly be. They came through hedgerows we thought were solid walls. Our defensive positions, built over weeks, turned into death traps. We could no longer predict their paths." Between July 14th and July 21st, 1944, Kulin's reconnaissance unit, now operating deep behind German lines, finds and destroys 9 German tanks, 3 Tigers, 4 Panthers, and 2 Panzer IVs. All 9 are knocked out by attacks from unexpected directions made possible by the hedgerow cutter. The unit loses one vehicle to a mine. 0 losses to direct enemy fire. The bigger picture impact goes far beyond these small fights. On July 25, 1944, Operation Cobra begins, the breakout from Normandy. More than 1,500 American tanks, almost all fitted with coolant cutters or similar devices, smash through German lines in 48 hours. What Allied planners thought would take 6 weeks happens in 2 days. The numbers tell the story clearly. In June 1944, before the cutter was widely used, American tank losses in Normandy averaged 82 per week. In August 1944, with the cutter on nearly every tank, losses fall to 31 per week, even though operations are far more intense. Tank crew survival rate improves by 64%. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Fry, who in June had called the hedgerow problem impossible to solve, writes in his August 15th report, "The Cullen device has completely changed armored warfare in this theater. We are no longer limited by terrain. The psychological boost to our crews is beyond measure. They know they can go anywhere. The Germans know it too." Captured German intelligence reports from August 1944 show the enemy's view. One document from 7th Army Headquarters, dated August 3, 1944, states, "American tanks have gained the ability to breach bocage obstacles at will. Our defensive doctrine, built on funneling enemy armor into prepared kill zones, is now outdated. Recommend immediate withdrawal to better terrain east of the Seine." By August 25, 1944, Paris is liberated. By September, Allied forces reach the German border. The Normandy campaign, expected to last until October, ends in 3 months. Military historians later estimate that the Cullen cutters shortened the campaign by 6 to 8 weeks, saving around 10,000 Allied lives. Curtis Cullen receives the Legion of Merit on August 20, 1944. The citation reads, "For exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. Sergeant Cullen's ingenuity and initiative in developing a device to overcome hedgerow obstacles contributed materially to the success of Allied operations in France." He is promoted to sergeant. He turns down a battlefield commission, choosing to stay with his reconnaissance unit. He never looks for fame. When reporters try to interview him, he gives credit to the maintenance crews who built the cutters and the tank commanders who used them in battle. The Cullen hedgerow cutter, nicknamed the Rhino by tank crews, becomes officially known as the M1 hedgerow cutting device. By September 1944, more than 3,000 have been made and issued. The device stays in use until the end of the war. Modified versions see action in Italy and during the Rhine crossing in 1945. Post-war studies by the U.S. Army Center of Military History rank the Cullen cutter as one of the 5 most important tactical innovations of World War II, alongside radar, the proximity fuse, amphibious landing craft, and long-range fighter escorts. In October 1945, at a ceremony in New York City, General Dwight D. Eisenhower meets Cullen in person. Eisenhower tells him, "You did what all our engineers said couldn't be done. You did it with scrap metal and common sense. Young man, you saved thousands of lives." Cullen returns to Cranford, New Jersey in December 1945. He goes back to driving a cab, his old job before the war. He almost never talks about his service. When neighbors find out about the hedgerow cutter, he brushes it off as just something that had to be done. In 1954, the French government awards Cullen the Croix de Guerre with Palm. He attends the ceremony but gives no speech. In 1984, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, he is invited to Normandy for the commemorations. He declines, saying, "I'm not the hero. The heroes are the guys who drove those tanks into combat every day. Curtis G. Cullen Jr. dies on May 2nd, 1963, at age 43 from heart complications. His obituary in the Cranford Chronicle is 4 paragraphs long. It does not mention the hedgerow cutter. Today, examples of Cullen's device are on display at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, the Tank Museum in Bovington, England, and the Memorial de Caen in France. Modern combat engineering vehicles still use the same basic idea: cutting blades instead of brute force to break through obstacles. The U.S. Army still teaches the Cullen story at the Command and General Staff College as a lesson in battlefield innovation. The key point they stress: sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. Sometimes a corporal with a welding torch can see what generals and engineers cannot. In 1987, veterans of the 3rd Armored Division put up a memorial at Omaha Beach. Among the names carved there is Curtis G. Cullen Jr. Below his name, a simple line reads, "Because of you, we came home." The hedgerows of Normandy still stand, ancient and impenetrable as ever, but they no longer kill tank crews. One man, armed with scrap metal and stubborn determination, made sure of that.